This is a walkthrough for the Wall of Arrows event. In this video, I'm going to be going over levels 3 through 6 and the ways I found to best tackle them. Since levels 1 and 2 are tutorials, I will not be covering them since they essentially walk you through them. However, I will go over the tactics I used for every other level. Also note that you only need 16 out of 18 of these stars, so you will not need 3-star perfection on each level to succeed. But without further ado, let's get started. First, level 3 is just like level 1 and 2 in map size, except for you have 3 marches, 1 ranged and 2 melee. You won't have the second melee march initially, but it will spawn before the enemies get to the field. This is the orientation I use, with Martel on the left and Guan in the middle. With this map, you will have some people coming through the right, but you should be able to rotate Guan inside the walls back and forth to defend that. If you do that with the Wafura position where he is, they can hit everybody and you should have no trouble having a perfect 3-star with this. All the times I've ran through this, I haven't once had it not succeed. Level 4 is where it gets a little tricky. There's a new map, and there's still a lot of choke points, but you can still get the basic entrance. Actually, you only have 2 entrances, which is nice. So you can see with my positioning, I have both melee marches at the entrances, and then I have the ranged march at the front corner. You can also move him closer to the storehouse if you want to cover more area, but I like having the better range to cover a wider range of areas. But the same basic tactic can apply. If you would like to, you could also move Martel further in and have him protect from there. But either way, you just put the melee marches at the choke points and you let the ranged march do a lot of the work while the melee march keeps them still. So level 5 is where it starts to get tricky. Now you have a 3rd storehouse to defend that's outside the city walls. I like the same position for my ranged unit where it can cover the north side entrance and the exposed storehouse. And then I put Cal on the left side because he's got more mobility and he can get in and hit things. And then you can always fall back to the interior point I mark on the screen now if you need to defend and your cow starts to get weakened. Then it's in the range of the ranged unit, and you can have the ranged unit target whatever is overwhelming your cow. I keep the Richard at the north because it's just there to be a wall, so it does an excellent job there preventing advance, while Guan's damage protects the exposed one by melting anything that gets close to it. So overall, I like this, and very rarely have I ever had trouble not getting 3 stars with this setup. The last, but certainly not least, we have level 6, and this is definitely the hardest one. And if there's one that you're not going to get 3 stars on, it's going to be this one. And that's not a bad thing, because even if you've gotten 3 stars on 1 through 4, you can get 2 stars on the next 2 and get maximum rewards. So even if you're not doing great on the 5th one and you only get 2 stars there, you only have to get 2 stars on this one. And that's a lot easier to do than it seems. So this is the setup I use. I have Guan on the inside on the defensive position because then it puts it in range of your ranged unit. And then I have Richard out on the outside as a stall unit. When you do it the opposite way, there's too many troops and the Guan usually gets melted so fast he doesn't stand a chance. I keep Cow at the north end because it is able to move quickly. And essentially what you'll do at the end of this level is you'll have a boss. So you'll use your Richard to try to stall for as long as possible, and when he gets weak enough, you can fall back and swap in your cow and your Guan from either side and try to finish off the boss. Sometimes you'll lose the storehouse with this strategy, but then you'll just have 2 out of 3, and that'll give you 17 out of 18, which is more than enough. And even if you manage to lose the Richard during all this too, then you'll get 1 out of 3, which still puts you at 16 out of 17. But I have not had both happen. I either lose the Richard, or I lose the storehouse, or I lose neither. So this I find to be effective about 50% of the time. Every other time I'll have a perfect 3-star, and then every other time I'll have 2 out of 3, which is still really solid and overall really good. So what should you look for and plan when you're doing this yourself for future events? The biggest thing you want to do is make sure you've got your ranged unit positioned well. You want your ranged unit to cover as many entrances as possible, because the more entrances you cover, the more damage it can deal, and the more time it's going to be spent firing. And the more time it's spent firing, the better chance you have to succeed, because your troops are taking less damage because you're dealing more of that free damage. The second thing is to position your tank marches where they can be used best. That means blocking the enemy from getting through a crucial point. That means putting them on another tank march if you need to. The big thing that they do is they can sponge a lot of damage, but they can also knock off the shielding of the enemy. And they can also really beat down the only thing that your ranged units can't hit. And of course, with the cavalry units, you want to use their mobility to go around and pick off enemies or try to hit things and chase down ranged units, because their mobility allows them to hit ranged units much faster. So those are the general things you should be looking for when you are trying to decide how to set up your movement and how to plan your defense. Now we're going to talk about dealing with adversity. So I talked about some tactics you can use, but the only way you're going to know what to do and where you're going to need that cavalry march to be positioned, where you're going to need that infantry march to be positioned, is by trying and failing. And you're going to fail on these levels sometimes. Sometimes you're just going to have a troop that gets overwhelmed because you're dealing with something else and you lose it. You only get 2 stars. And if it ends up that you're short, you just got to find where you can make up those points. But the biggest thing is, don't get discouraged. Pay attention to where your units are, where the enemy's ranged units are, where the enemy's melee units are, where they're coming from, so that you can properly change your lineup and change your positioning to be ready for them the next time, because they come in the same pattern every time. So even if you don't succeed the first time, just pay close attention and be ready to adjust your positioning. Because even on the 6th level, that was the one I struggled with the most. I repositioned my troops 4 times, and then it finally found a position that worked really well for me. And then I found the success level that I wanted to see and the consistency that I wanted to see in that defense to be able to post it here for you guys. So don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to just watch what happens. Even if you just sit there and don't actually do anything, just watch what happens and watch what comes out, so that you can position yourself for the next time you go around, because you have unlimited tries on this. It's not like you have a limited number of attempts. But with that, we'll conclude our discussion on the Wall of Arrows event. I actually really like this event. It's something that's unique while also being familiar enough that you know what's going on. It's cool that you don't have to have specific commanders maxed to be relevant, like you would in Canyon, like you would in some of these other events. And then the mechanics, it's a genuinely cool way to learn the new mechanics. So I really like this. Let me know what you guys thought about the event, what you guys found that worked for you on specific levels. And if you want to see another topic covered, just let me know in the comments section below. But as always, good luck, fight well, and I will see you on the battlefield.